We are the reason to which these people are treating us this way. Our leaders should spare us all this more and all these things that they are doing. Personally, I wasn't happy when this resolution came out, because you can't tell me that you are fighting for reparation, you are fighting for the African, yet you still allow these people to be establishing their bases here. You are the same people who are allowing these people to come into the continent to carry the resources away. You are the same people that are giving out our resources and getting 9, 10, 6% out of it, and you ask us to hail you. You are the same people who are still moving from one IMF loan to the other. And yet when you bring this money into the country, we don't see you doing anything with it. You are the same people who still go and take these IMF loans, make life unbearable for your people, because the conditions that they give to you at the end of the day doesn't favor your people. You are the same people who still believe that you need these people in order to survive. So why won't a small party like this in the UK talk to us 1.something billion people the way they want? We are the same people who are preaching Pan-Africanism, sitting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, demanding for things and asking for the African solution to the African problem, and always writing scripts and reading them to us, talking without actions. And when we have leaders in Africa who have risen to unite the African, we are the same people who are pointing fingers at them, calling them undemocratic juntas. Yet we, those who are protecting democracy, and we praise ourselves for how well we have maintained democracy from one republic to the fourth republic, are the same people that are suffering. The same people that are fighting against the progress. Because if truly we are looking for reparation, we should be the ones that will be teaming up with our brothers and sisters, and not to be claiming that what is happening to our brothers and sisters in the Sahel should not spread to where we are. What at all have you been able to do? We are seeing African leaders who are still thinking about important things into the continent. The same leaders who are calling for reparation, who are talking about how they want to change the economy, are the same people that are making sure that we become economic slaves to other people. These are the same people who prefer to give waivers to even Yolo Popo, the white man who comes to look for or do a business here. And these are the same people who allow their Bank of Ghana or whatever central bank that they have to be increasing and demanding 200,000 United States dollars from young African youth who have labored, and they have been able to get something to establish something that can even give jobs to their brothers and sisters. Look at the amount of money these people are demanding, yet we keep saying that we don't need to sign this Trumu bill because we think that it is not something that is important right now because we need to deal with unemployment. How can you deal with unemployment when in that same country called Ghana, we have Bank of Ghana demanding $200 from these young ones that manage to get something to do, and they can't give them free waivers because these things that they are doing isn't a bank they are running. We are the people who are allowing these people to be doing this to us. After you finish talking about reparation and calling for what they have done to us to be the gravest crime, listing the pain, the rape, the everything, you are the same people who still go and be on their tables begging for one thing to the other. And when you come out, you expect these people to buy into your ideas. How did we get here? So African leaders say you need to come again. You are the reason to which we are going through this. If you people should have kept things in place properly, I don't think that this small party can look into the face of Africans and talk to us this way. Which of these people can talk to Iran today like this? Because Iranians have come together united. We are rather dividing ourselves more. Because when you even get the chance to be in the presence of these people, instead of you to speak as a continent, you are talking about my country, and my country is doing this, my country is doing that. You don't even speak as a people. But when you need reparation, you want to speak one voice for the reparation to be given to you. If truly you are looking for reparation, change your approach. Give back whatever the oppressor has given to us. Stop begging them and stop making us dependent on these people as if the African can do anything without them. And until you do that, these people will continue to treat you this way. United we stand, divided we fall. And united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in the United Kingdom.
Mr. Trump is not a man of peace. He is a man of world destabilization. But Iran has shown us that when a people believes in itself, believes in its capabilities, when it is convinced it is a strong civilization, rooted in its own values, well, that people can resist anything. Building sovereignty means first of all producing what we consume, processing what we extract. There is no sovereignty without a productive base. There is no sovereignty without a productive base. Yet Africa's main problem is the lack of a productive base. A cannibalized primary sector, a non-existent secondary sector, and an overblown tertiary sector essentially marked by the informal economy. We cannot achieve development, let alone sovereignty, under these conditions. And Iran has just demonstrated that to us. Removing sitting presidents, simply removing individuals in order to extract them and then subjecting them to your own version of justice is not truly democracy, especially if it is to be properly understood in terms of international law. Which war has been won? None. No war has been won. The United States and the West have engaged in many wars in recent decades. They didn't win the Vietnam War. They didn't win the war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Syria. They didn't even win the war in Somalia, where they were forced to withdraw, pursued by armed gangs. Except for sowing chaos and disorder in their wake. In these countries, none of these wars have been won because none of the objectives have been met. These countries will not be cited as examples of democracy, under the Western conception, of course. What objective was assigned for the war in Iran? It was to replace a regime that has not been done. The same regime, in its most radical and harshest version, will continue, and the United States is forced to talk and negotiate with this regime. Reducing Iran's ballistic capabilities, that has not been achieved. Forcing Iran to renounce all nuclear programs, both civil and military, is not an achieved objective. None of the objectives have been met. And yet the world is plunged into a chaos that nothing justifies. Mr. Trump is not a man of peace, he is a man of world destabilization. And alongside all of that, should we also feel regret for the actions and behavior of the other Western faction, the eternal givers of lessons? From the start of the hostilities, all Western regimes made statements deploring the violation of international law and international order. But it stops right there. And to soften and justify themselves to their boss, they must nevertheless add that they rejoice that leader Khamenei was executed, since he is a dangerous terrorist who oppresses his people, that they rejoice that Nicolas Maduro was exfiltrated because he was a dictator playing a balancing act that nothing justifies. It is not for them to judge and decide for other peoples. Let it be enough for them to do it for themselves, which seems to be increasingly complex. Make America Great Again simply refers to essentially the realization that the sole superpower we once were was, in fact, in the process of losing. Its position in the face of the rising power of other blocs, and particularly China. The solution is not the one being used today by America and by President Trump, trying to reassert its absolute power over its sphere of influence, notably Western Europe, part of South America and the Gulf, trying to cut off supply lines to stifle a competitor at the risk of destabilizing the entire world is not the solution. The United States themselves will not escape the extremely negative consequences. What are these consequences? Will we witness a rearmament of many Asian countries which, given what has happened, are realizing the limits of American protection? Japan, which hosts the largest American military base in the world, South Korea, since the Gulf countries were not sufficiently protected by the United States, or at least could not withstand the Iranian strikes. Will countries that have the capacity to rearm, including on the nuclear level, continue to entrust their security or part of their security to the United States of America in the face of China's rising power? This is a question that perhaps researchers will answer, or history in the making. Will we witness the end of the petrodollar, which is the system that was established in the aftermath of the Second World War, based on the exploitation of the massive oil and gas resources of the Gulf monarchies, but with extremely significant investments and a solidification of the dollar as the international currency of exchange? History will tell us very soon. What I mean by that is that Mr. Trump got exactly the opposite of what he was looking for by starting this war. What consequences or what lessons are there for us Africans? Iran has just shown us. I am not here to judge the Iranian regime for better or worse. But Iran has shown us that when a people believes in itself, believes in its capabilities, when it is convinced it is a strong civilization, rooted in its own values, well, that people can resist anything. And Iran has just demonstrated that to us. This conference, titled Autonomy, Patriotism, and the Multipolar World, Africa in Search of its Sovereignty, invites us to reflect together on how our sovereignties, they have become familiar, almost comfortable, and yet as soon as we try to take them seriously, they slip away. They resist, they compel. Exactly when we talk about African sovereignty, are we talking about a heritage or a construction site, an achievement or a lack? But even before answering this question, we must know what we call Africa. Africa, when we talk about Africa, the rest of the world talks about Africa as if it were a single entity, a country. Africa is 55 states. Neutral? Africa is not just a continent. It is not just a mosaic of states, of peoples, of languages, of cultures, nor even an infinite variation of shades in the skin color of its inhabitants. Africa is not just an essence, it is a trajectory, a shared experience made of grandeur, of rupture, and of dispossession. Ancient Egypt, Nubia, the Emperor of Mali, whose wealth and influence left their mark on the Mediterranean world. Or Abu Bakr II, that Malian sovereign who, long before others, our languages, our indigenous knowledge, our arts and our living cultures, which must be valued as a lever for intellectual sovereignty. This reminder is not a detour through the past. It allows us to understand a rupture because between these experiences of power and our contemporary realities, a historical shift has occurred. The slave trade then did not only impose a political domination, it restructured territories, oriented economies outward, and permanently inscribed Africa, which sheds light on our current situation. African countries are independent today. They have their flag, their anthem, their constitution. They sign agreements, they vote, but do they always decide? This question is not provocative, it is necessary. As Kwame Nkrumah reminded us, in the 20th century, we have not yet fully transformed it in the 21st century. But what exactly are we talking about? Sovereignty. As far as we are concerned, a few moral centers that speak as if their own historical trajectory were the measure of all civilization. the world has too often confused. There is a need to clearly distinguish sovereignty from closure. In that, sovereignty consists of freely choosing one's norms, partners, and priorities without withdrawing from international dialogue. Outward-looking, we export raw materials, we import processed products. Our currencies, for some, remain linked to architectures inherited from colonization. We, to claim military, monetary, or diplomatic sovereignty, must also claim the right to produce our own categories of analysis, our own intellectual priorities, our own readings of development in legal form without material substance. A word without power. Sovereignty thus becomes a legal form, without substance, transformed into a rhetoric of legitimation. Now, true patriotism is something else entirely. It is a oh no. A legal form without material substance, a word without power. Through a state's ability to produce results, legal security, fiscal discipline, economic transformation, mastered international negotiation, institutional quality, it is also a matter of will. And this is where the patriotism we hold so dear comes in. Patriotism today is often misunderstood. Either it is reduced to an emotional posture, to slogans. I would like to recall here earlier I spoke of the French Revolution. A revolution does not take place over a year or over a few months. It is after the overthrow of the old system, only then does the revolution start. Only then do the profiles emerge and the stakes become clear. Because the system, in its national and international branches, does not give in. It is after the revolution that each member of the revolution truly discovers themselves. And some discover for themselves that they were not ready for the revolution. Today, in our country, Senegal is in a context that everyone knows. Yesterday, I told the Council of Ministers that we were already in crisis. The hidden debt we inherited alone is enough to consider that we are in crisis. It is the aggravation of the crisis. In a country like this, many who chose revolution and patriotism are not ready for sacrifice. We must be ready for sacrifice to say no, because this revolution will not fail. And as Frantz Fanon foresaw in The Wretched of the Earth, when the state becomes a tool for accumulation rather than emancipation, patriotism is hollow. This challenges us, each and every one of us, but the patriots must be those of today. They must be even more so. I tend to say that no reality of power is set in stone. It is up to us to breathe into power the realities that we want. We do not have to endure the realities of power. We must therefore rehabilitate a demanding patriotism. A demanding patriotism, for there will be no sovereignty without a social base. There has never been sovereignty without a social base. There will be no sovereignty without what we might call a collective political morality, a political morality of the collective. When our greatest challenge is the transformation of structures. It's not about material achievements at any cost, right here and now. It is the transformation of our needs. Otherwise, we would have long since moved past the situations we are currently facing. And so, when elites substitute themselves for the people without transforming structures, that is why transparency, accountability, and the exemplary nature of elites must be at the heart of our sovereignty project. Without credible governance, no patriotism can endure. More just, more dignified, more educated, more credible, and more capable of contributing to the world. In other words, patriotism is not the verbal exaltation of the flag. It is the capacity of a state to protect its interests without lying to its people, without humiliating its neighbors. It is therefore the capacity to not humiliate its neighbors and without insulting the intelligence of the world. But this reflection cannot take place outside of the world. And that is the third axis of my intervention. As the speaker reminded us earlier, it is changing. We are witnessing today a profound transformation of the international order. The multilateralism that Africa calls for today, Mr. Boniface, is not a multilateralism that is decorative where Africa is invited to applaud rules written elsewhere, but a multilateralism that corrects the asymmetries of an international architecture that has become insufficiently legitimate, the application of norms, the necessity of reforming global governance, notably in finance and security.
Iranians have better leadership. They understand what leadership is all about. When you take the mantle to lead a group of people, what it meant. Unlike those in Africa, those in the democratic elected, who only understand that being a leader, it is better to have things while your people suffer. Like the Iranian supreme leader that was taken. When he knew very well that where he was going, he wouldn't come back alive. They even prevented him from going. Yet he went, saying that if he can be protected, what about the rest of the Iranians? But we will have our leaders when things become difficult, running out. Africans, we are not poor like he said. It's just that we don't have people who are ready to manage us. We should not be poor people, but we have leaders who are protecting borders instead of protecting us. People who prefer that we need to give our resources out to other people. And at the end of the day, these same people tend to give us 5-6%, and these leaders expect us to hail them for doing something meaningful for us. We need to wake up, and we need to start looking for leaders. And the problem is the youth of today will always be on you, because these are the same people who follow these leaders blindly. We follow these leaders blindly because of the speeches they give at African Union, UN, or wherever they get the opportunity to be. But we don't look at their actions. Compare what these people are doing to what the AES leaders who just came into office the shortest possible time. These people continue to be pushing things forward from one party to the other. And at the end of the day, it is you, the same people who are suffering, that are supporting them. When it comes to finances, when it comes to agriculture, we even have the best of everything. We are seeing the way people are going around using power against us. And we are still the same people who can't even stand family. Like one time, Kwesi Pras said that the African leaders, those in the democratic elected, are very quiet and they can't come out openly to condemn what this man is doing in Iran and in the world because they are scared of their assets and visa. Because these people are made to believe that when you rob your people, you must keep it there. And sometimes I am excited that when they finish taking everything from Africa, they keep it there. And at the end of the day, these same things, no matter how they try to protect them, they still end up losing them. And it's beautiful. So leadership is the problem. Our leaders are looking for power, yet they are not ready to use the power to protect us. And for how long will we continue with this? How long will we continue to allow other people to come into the continent to have access to us cheaply in this way? We saw what Iran is doing. Unity. Even though Iran is a small nation, that these people think that they have the superpower, they can go there and do everything that they want. Yet, when they entered, they saw the difference between Africa countries and then Iran. Iran proved to these people that they will never sit down for other people to determine the fate. But we still have Africans who are sitting here praising what the oppressor is doing. The same people that is preaching peace, we are seeing what he's doing ever since he came. The peace that he promised the world is actually the peace he's giving to the world. And how many leaders are so bold to say this? If Africa will be better, it is you and I, the youth, that can cause a change. We sit here and we blame the leaders, but let's ask ourselves, how are we also ready to take the mantle to make sure we change the narrative here? We shouldn't forget that when they are done with other countries, it is here. And they are making sure that they enter here to even stop the revolution that is currently ongoing in Africa. We are not supposed to be poor because we have everything that it takes to make us better people. The time is now for us all to unite together and to make sure we gain everything that is rightful ours. Iran has taught us a lesson, and I think we don't have to be watching, but to be learning everything that Iran is teaching us. And that is the only time we can save ourselves. United we stand, divided we fall. And united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Africa, West Africa, and in Senegal.